The Art of War by Sun Tzu. This is actually the English version of the name. I asked someone who spoke Chinese, and I was told a more literal translation of the book's name is Master Sun's Military Method, but The Art of War sounds more poetic in English. A few years back, I listened to an episode of the Indicator podcast from Planet Money called The Art of War. It's Not for Everyone. I'm a fan of Planet Money and of their guest John McWhorter, who has a wonderful Great Courses lecture series. But I felt they gave a dismissive, unfair, and misleading review of the art of war in this podcast, so this is my friendly rebuttal. To give you a sense, here are some John McWhorter quotes from that podcast episode. I hate it, and assigning people the art of war really has nothing to do with anything. The general thrust of the podcast episode was annoyance with the obsession Wall Street business types seem to have with warlike language, and in particular their fascination with the book The Art of War. I think The Art of War has lessons not just for the military or business people, but for everyone. The book is short and has many famous quotes, but here's a few ideas that I think get less attention. In the chapter on maneuvering, it mentions, when you surround an army, leave an outlet free, and do not press a desperate foe too hard. This chapter mentions how people behave when they are desperate, or when they are on death ground. It is dangerous to antagonize people who are in a desperate position. Often, it is better to allow someone a safe path of retreat rather than pushing them into a corner. If someone you care about made a bold claim that turned out to be wrong, you could corner them by reminding them of their bold claim and pressuring them to admit that they were wrong. But this could go bad very quickly. People who are cornered will often lash out of desperation. In the chapter on waging war, Cao Kung, an early Chinese commentator, notes that he who wishes to fight must first count the cost. Another way to put this is, only take on battles that are profitable. A lesson I still have a difficult time learning is that many battles are not profitable and not worth fighting. The classic for me is trying to prove I'm right rather than simply focusing on getting the intended outcome. Outside of math class, I found that there is almost never a reward for proving I'm right. Arguing with people to prove we're right rarely convinces them to admit that they are wrong, but it does usually offend them and make them dig in their heels. A bumper sticker version I try to remember when I'm failing to learn this lesson is, do you want to be right, or do you want a result? In the chapter on terrain, The Art of War discusses different kinds of terrain and how they impact your maneuverability. An important type of terrain to remember is entangling ground. It's often much easier to get ourselves into a situation than it is to get ourselves out of a situation. This is especially true if we don't have clear goals and a clear exit plan. A classic example of this is a house in a bad location. Easy to buy, but will you ever be able to sell it? If you've ever listened to Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett describe their investing approach, then you're familiar with the idea that they clearly define what would cause them to take action and then ignore anything that does not meet that criteria. This is a good way to avoid getting into entangling situations that are difficult to escape. If you don't have a go, no-go list for when take action, you might find yourself getting into situations that are hard to exit. In the book, What I Learned Losing $1 Million, two important investment lessons are, if the opportunity in front of you doesn't meet your standards, you don't act, and always define your exit plan. Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, focuses on determination, but she has a small but important part of the book that covers knowing when to quit. Determination is very important in life, but it's also important to make an exit plan. What kind of behavior would you not tolerate in a relationship? How long would you tolerate bad behavior before you decide to end the relationship and spend your time around other people? What kind of work environment would you simply not tolerate? If you don't define this early on, you might find yourself spending years of your life in terrible situations because you have no action criteria or exit plan. Nassim Taleb and Mark Spitznagel both mention the importance of exit strategies in investments. They both mention stop-loss methods for selling before an investment drops too low. You should never get into an investment without a clear plan for how and when you would get out of it. Another fun Nassim Taleb story is the idea of writing your resignation letter on the first day of your job. This emphasizes the importance of having a plan for exiting entangling ground. When you sign a contract with someone, how many years of your life will be spent dealing with them? How do you escape if they turn out to be terrible? If you want to go into more depth, I recommend the Great Courses series on the Art of War by Andrew Wilson.